MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast, is presented by the Vintage Anime Video Network. Visit us at www.vintageanimevideo.com.
A recommendation from a cat is hardly...
What an amusing young lady, Charles. In this instance, I think we can make an exception.
But...
Oh, thank you! It'll be nice to have such a vivacious young lady in my seminar, but there is one condition.
Oh, a condition? You mean I'm clumsy? I'm not too good at table manners, or any manners, actually. But hey, outdoor sports, hey, I'm an ace. If I don't have to run.
Well, no real lady likes to run. Charles, get the discus.
Yes. Here you are.
What?
The Countess greatly enjoys the discus throw, so if you want to join the seminar, you must demonstrate your skill level for her.
Hey, no problem. This I am good at. Here goes!
Bravo!
Excellent! You've just been accepted into the Princess Seminar.
Good morning, girls. I'm going to talk to you this morning about the way you look. Now, I've heard it said that we women attach too much importance to our appearance, but that isn't true. After all, the way we look exerts so much influence on the way we feel and on the way other people feel about us that it really is very important. When I talk about good appearance or good grooming or looking your best, you probably think immediately of clothes or hairstyle or makeup. Well, I realize that those things are especially interesting to you, and they are important, and I am going to talk about them. But please remember that they are just really the trimmings. Just like the icing on the cake. If the icing is very good, well, that's fine. But if the cake itself isn't good, you'd soon lose interest in the icing. So let's start with the cake and come back to the trimmings later.
Welcome back to MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Alex, and today Chris and I will be discussing the 33rd episode of the 90s English dub of Sailor Moon, aka the Deke dub, titled Little Miss Manners. The clip you heard at the beginning of today's episode features Mary Stuyvesant, I hope I'm saying that right, giving some homespun advice to a group of high school girls on how to look prettier following some basic rules. You can view the whole video on YouTube, link in today's episode description. I just thought that was a great way to show how things like this sort of both change and stay the same in different ways over time. And it was to me, I've always been fascinated by this world, as you'll hear later. So I thought some of you guys enjoyed that. Share with us. Are you fascinated by the world of good manners, or is it sort of annoying or frustrating for you? I kind of somehow managed to fall on both sides. You'll see by the end of the episode what I mean. But I did want to take a brief moment at the beginning to remind everybody about the clips at the very end of the show that feature the battle scenes. I think I've said this before in the intros, but they are there to serve a purpose for those of us who love Sailor Moon the way that I know all of you do who are listening. We sometimes draw strength from the show in one way or another, whether you're connecting to a specific character who makes you feel more seen in your life, or maybe several characters in different ways. Maybe it's the music that keeps you coming back and makes you feel, like you could handle anything. The colors, the animation, the story, whatever it is, we're all here for a big enough reason, right? For me, getting to see our heroes every week channel their higher selves, which is how Terri Hawkes described transforming in an interview before, each episode. That's what's kind of always been my favorite aspect of it. And I just feel that that's what it's meant to teach us, is that like anyone can channel their higher self. Anyone can kind of draw power from somewhere, even when you don't think you can. And sometimes it just takes putting on like the right song, even, you know what I mean, to get that feeling back, to start that fire again inside, you know. So that's why I put those clips at the end of the show. And I just wanted to encourage you guys who maybe don't listen all the way to the end to remember that they're there and give those a go for some fun. That happens after the disclaimer at the end, if you don't know. And for anybody who might want or need it right now, here is an extra moon healing activation. And the way it works is you just join in with whatever you feel needs healing in your heart right now, whatever that is. And remember to shout it like you mean it, because it's a way of release. This is taking a lot of actual things that are sort of like scientifically good for your mental health and just putting it through the medium of Sailor Moon. And I think those of us here would appreciate that. So here we go. You know what to do. I'll see you in the episode.
And
should we do a little, I don't know, like a little chant together?
That'd be awesome. What kind of chant you looking at?
How about moon healing activation?
Moon healing activation.
All right, and we'll bring the universe with us and fight the nightmares.
And our listeners at home have to scream along. If they're on the bus or whatever, they just got to do it.
Okay, so.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Moon healing activation! Woo!
So, before we get into the episode, though, we haven't recorded in a couple of weeks. Why don't you catch everybody up on what's been going on with you?
Nothing too much different. Just more drag shows that I've been going to, like usual. Next tattoo is in 2 weeks. 13 days.
Oh, okay. What are you getting this time?
It's the neck up, so pretty much just the face of Alir, who is the protagonist of the most recent console Fire Emblem game.
Oh, cool. Where are you getting that?
On the opposite side of my left arm, so like the flip side of where the Haruka tattoo is.
I'm assuming you're building like an anime or just a sleeve in general,
oh,
right?
No, I mean, that's not the plan, but I mean, maybe that'll end up happening. I don't know.
I would just say it just seems like the natural trajectory, or however you say that word, from where you're going. That's cool, though. People can see, you have another one you were just talking about. What's the other tattoo?
The two other ones I have are the icon of Haruka from episode 116, when the frame is it's a still frame of when her and Setsuna and Michiru are standing in the flower garden watching the picnic that Usagi, Mamoru, Chibiusa, and Hotaru are having. And then my right arm is Seliph from Fire Emblem, like most of my lower right arm.
And these are on your Instagram too, both of them, if anyone's interested in looking. I love anime tattoos. I've seen all kinds. The ones that... I mean, listen, put whatever you want on your body, but have you ever seen the people who get, like, Sailor Moon as King of the Hill, but it's, like, actually tattooed on them and stuff? I don't get it. Like, I would not. But if that brings them joy, by all means, do it. But yeah, I don't know, I'm still blank. Although I do have a scar in the shape of Florida from when I fell down and, like, my parents put me in sports when I was a kid, I think, as like a way to try to butch me up a little bit. And I was in basketball and I fell when we were practicing outside on like this cement gravel. And I remember I saw the bone through my knee, and I just was thinking, I think this should hurt more. And then they put stuff on it, and then it like kind of healed. I still have a scar. It's never gone away, but it is in the shape of Florida, and I always thought that was funny. And you had a birthday since we talked. Happy belated birthday on the show.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was just this past weekend. It was the 5th, so this past Saturday.
What did you do this weekend?
I just went, I just spent the weekend or Friday night through Sunday morning and just in Minneapolis doing stuff that I normally do. I just saw, I hung out with like two or three people that I'm friends with, and yeah, it was fine. It was good.
Low key birthday. I kind of love that though. Did you at least have a great time?
I wouldn't say. I mean, it was good. Yeah, it wasn't like amazing or anything, but I didn't really think it would be. I was just glad that I got to be in the city and stay with somebody.
Yeah, that's always nice. Did you get anything for yourself? Do you do that?
Well, no, I didn't really do that this time because, I mean, for a long time now, I just get like money for my birthday from like family and like anybody like so nothing specific.
I think in my 20s that was probably the case too for me, and then in my 30s at some point I realized the importance of like the ceremony of gifting myself an item on my birthday. So I always get myself something, and it's usually something really dumb. Like this last year, do you know what the Cracker Barrel is?
Yeah.
It's, for those who don't, it's a southern restaurant. It's on most interstates, I think throughout the country actually. I think is it in Minnesota too?
Yeah, there's like there's at least one like in the metro area. I've never been to one though.
Yeah, and I absolutely love it for a lot of reasons. There's a store built into it, that sells like literally sort of everything except groceries, but they do have food. It's weird. But you can buy, like, if you want to get some candles or some candy that looks like it was made in like 1920, you know. But I go there for my birthday, and this year I just got myself like a bottle of their special syrup. Like, it's nothing crazy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, I don't know, it's worth it to celebrate yourself a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
For sure. Because think about it, like, you're still here, and it's largely because of you.
Right.
So you should celebrate that, right? Well, I hope you had a good birthday, nonetheless. Do we have any birthday episodes in Sailor Moon? We do.
Really? I didn't even know.
1. Or is it 2?
Off the top of my head.
Sailor Moon S. Remember, her Crystal episode is technically her birthday. I think that's the only one, though. Unless I'm missing one. Well, that's a fun little detail. What about your interviews? What's going on with those?
I still haven't had anything planned, but I think I've already talked to people, because the next Genshin Impact update is next Friday, and I've already talked to, one person that plays a new character that's coming out that I haven't interviewed yet, so I know that I'll be doing him probably like I don't think it'll be on that weekend, but probably the week after, so, and then I'll probably do another sequel because there's 3 new characters coming out of this update, and I've already interviewed one of them, and I'll probably do a sequel with him if I can. So
which one is he? So if anyone wants to hear the first one, so they're ready.
So the one that I've already interviewed out of the 3 new characters is Damon Mills, who plays Lenny in Genshin Impact now. I interviewed him back in like late spring. Yeah, it's a whole new region of Genshin Impact, so anytime that happens, there's a ton of characters that are introduced at once, and like with each update too that comes out every month or every other month.
Nice. So if anyone wants to check out him, say his name once more.
Damon Mills.
Damon Mills on Chris's YouTube channel, to go and watch that the first interview.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he does the follow-up, you'll kind of just get to pick up, you know, from where you left off. I think that would be a great idea. All right, well, good luck on those. I don't know if there's much to update over here. I've just kind of been not feeling good. I guess if people want to, by the time this comes out, this will be old news, but we will have taken a break because I got sick in the beginning of August, and this time of year is kind of tough for me in general for just several reasons. So I was thinking about it, and I'm going to look at my schedule and block out some breaks for us that we're going to follow, kind of like a school schedule. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I'm going to give us like a winter break, a spring break, and a summer break. They're not going to be massive, but it's that way I will have time to kind of recalibrate. Because, this pulls creative energy from me, and anyone who's creative knows that sometimes you have to, like, recharge this. I'm sure yours do too, but you kind of can't tell the person, like, hey, I'm going to not interview you because my creative energy is low today, you know?
Yeah.
But we can sort of pause the show so that the episode quality doesn't dip, you know, just because we're trying to, I don't know, meet an imaginary deadline that doesn't exist. So I'll work that out and let you know what that is.
Okay.
All right. Are you ready to get into the episode?
Yeah.
Today on Sailor Moon, I decide it's time to acquire the manners of a princess and become the star pupil at a finishing school. Well, not quite. But I soon discover the matron of this finishing school is more interested in finishing off her students, and we Sailor Scouts have got to stop her. We'll be right back.
Okay. This week's Deke title is Little Miss Manners, which I think is a cute title for the actual content of the episode. What is it called in Japanese?
Let's Become a Princess, Usagi's Bizarre Training.
That's pretty cute, too, actually. I like both of them this week.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we open our episode?
It's a typical scenario for the show of Usagi being late to school, and then she runs into Naru, and then as they're standing outside of the school gate, there's a limousine that drives up, and then three very pretty, more classy, visibly not from here, foreigner girls come out and then enter the school past them, and then Naru is saying to Usagi that they're from this royal, like, academy or something in England, and they're just being sent over here, like, as an exchange program kind of thing.
Wait, they're from England?
I think so.
In the Japanese? Because in the English, they're just a couple of their classmates who are attending the, quote, princess seminar at the Rose Finishing School.
Oh, don't you know?
No.
It's the Rose Finishing School, and those girls are taking the princess seminar.
Huh? Oh, yeah, Countess Rose, right? That elegant woman? Oh, she's opened a finishing school?
Yeah, she's related to royalty, I hear. And she's gonna make over those girls so that they'll act just like princesses. Isn't that cool?
Oh.
Okay, yeah, I think it's just the same.
But they don't mention anything about foreigners, though, at all.
I think it's the same in Japanese, then, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where do you think you thought the England thing came from?
I don't know. I think I was maybe thinking of one of the episodes that's in, like, the next season or the third season. I think it's season 2, maybe, or maybe it's season 3, where...
Maybe. I was just like, wait a second. Does that mean technically they went to England in this episode? Because that's where they would have to have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the Deke version is probably accurate. It's this finishing school run by a countess. For those who don't know what a finishing school is, how would you describe that?
They don't exist anymore, I don't think, really, but it's basically just girls being taught how to serve tea, where forks go, and how to get like a wealthy, or not like a wealthy man to marry, but like a quote-unquote proper man, things like that.
Yeah, it's very old school etiquette specifically for women or young women, and it's all about how to be proper. There's also, though, and I think this is still sort of a culture in the South when it comes to things like beauty pageants and stuff, but there's like debutantes. That's a very Southern thing. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, and like a debutante ball. And part of that is going to finishing school too, where they learn all of these things. And the whole reason I even know about that is Fortune Feimster is a comedian, and she talks about how even though,
I know who that is.
Yeah, she talks about how she grew up where, like, her mom was rich, but then they lost all their money, but her mom still tried to make her do rich people things. So she was, like, the only poor kid at the finishing school and, like, all of that kind of stuff. But, yeah, that's what that is. And it's funny because I know it's, like, outdated today, but, like, this doesn't really make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the idea of one has always sort of been charming to me in the terms of, like, what an interesting thought that is. Like, what that must be like. It kind of seems like fun. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think it probably is in actuality. I think it's just maybe what the media and fictional properties have made it out to seem like.
Not only that, but I am just coming off of watching this episode, which really does make it seem fun. And this is like a child show. You know what I mean? Like, it's not as realistic. So you're probably right. In reality, it's probably not that great. If anyone listening has ever really been to one and has a real experience, please share it, though. And I don't care how far in the future you're listening to this. Comment wherever. I want to know what it's really like. But the music they use in the dream sequence here, because after this whole thing, she falls asleep, and we see her in Tuxedo Mask dancing and all of that stuff. I just really love the music they chose for this moment, and I thought the way Miss H bursts into her dream to wake her up was really cute.
MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast, will return after these messages. And now, more MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast.
How I wish I could be a real princess.
Presenting Princess Serena.
Ah, she's lovely. So elegant and refined.
Exactly what you imagine a princess should be.
May I have the pleasure of having this dance?
Serena, did you do your homework? Silence! How dare you speak to a princess like that?
Oh, pardon me, Your Highness. Forgive me, please.
Not.
Wake up, please. Serena!
I just really love the music they chose for this moment. And it's just little details like that make this one of my favorite episodes in season 1. I know there were some cuts here, though. What is the scene like at school in the Japanese? Because it's cut up in Deke a little.
You mean during that same scene?
Mm-hmm.
So when her teacher comes into her dream, she says, you can't, basically says that you can't tell a princess what to do. And then she ends up saying that in real life, too, without realizing it. And then she gets scolded for that and for not doing her homework. And then Haruna sends her out to stand in the hallway as a punishment.
Which, in the English version, they cut out that detail of why she's in the hallway. Like, you can still put it together, but they make a point of never saying that that's what that is. Like, that's a punishment of her standing in the hallway. And that's a through line in the first 2 seasons. For some reason, I think it was like, it's because we don't do that here in school.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, and I guess they were just like, we don't want kids being confused, or maybe they think it's too harsh or whatever. But I've always thought that was kind of odd that they chose to cut that out. I don't know. After that part, what do her and Luna talk about in the hallway?
Oh, it's just a brief little thing of Luna pops up and Usagi says that she decided that she wants to act more like a princess, and Luna thinks that it's for a different reason, but then Usagi says that it's just because she wants to be able to dance formally with a tuxedo mask.
I think it's even more cut down in the Deke, and it's a lot of kind of like giggly, bouncy deliveries, like, so you can barely catch what she's saying. But it's essentially the same idea. And then after that, we cut to the Negaverse for the first time in the episode. And this is where I need to ask you who animated this.
That's Ito.
Really? Because there were some really unfortunate frames in this episode. I'm shocked that it's her. I'm floored that it's her, actually. I was expecting it to be the worst animator. I'm not even joking.
That's funny.
That's insane. I sent you one of the frames. I think that's the ugliest frame I've ever seen of Tuxedo Mask.
Yeah, it's weird.
We'll get there later. But I noticed it first here during the Negaverse scene, and I think what it is that her style is so much more detailed than what we're used to. Mm-hmm. And she hasn't quite landed her sweet spot yet at this point, because this is early on in her animating the show.
For sure, yeah.
So we're kind of getting some symptoms of that, of like an early artist developing, which I'm not mad at it. You know what I mean? When I say it's like an ugly frame, I think it's funny, and and it's like we also, that allows us to see her growth as an artist, you know?
Yeah.
But I am really shocked that it's her. Like, wow. What, did you notice it at all?
I mean, I did remember this episode, but I do know what you mean, because the episodes that she did in seasons 1 and 2 weren't remotely close to what she's recognized for now. I don't think that it wasn't until, I would say, the scene that she animated in the first movie, with him seeing the memory of her past. I wouldn't say it wasn't until then that her style became like immediately recognizable as who she was.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, she's still definitely finding herself in season 1, and it's funny because didn't she do the rat episode with Zoiside and the cats?
Yeah,
and that one, animation wise, I think is spectacular. So
right.
it's odd, like, but you know what? Like we've said this many times, progress isn't linear. So peaks and valleys. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that actually is a way more interesting answer than it could have been. So that's good for our show, I guess. What actually happens during this scene, though, with the Negaverse? Since we haven't talked about that,
Queen Beryl asks Mamoru, Endymion, to team up with Kunzite. And then he just like flat out refuses, and then they just say that they'll both do their own thing.
Yeah, it's pretty short, and the basic idea we're supposed to get is that Darien, or Tuxedo, doesn't want any help or doesn't want to work with anybody else. He's solo character, I think. And after that, we see Luna talking to, quote, headquarters. And is this the first time we've seen her contact headquarters since Venus arrived?
I think so, yeah. And because of that being known now, then ends up being revealed that she's been talking to Artemis the whole time.
Yeah, and Luna is not pleased, which I thought was such a cute and funny way of them dropping, like, because story-wise they had to drop that, you know?
Yeah.
And this was a way of explaining it really well, of why it was stopping. It kind of like explains what it was the whole time all at once, and gives you some comedy. So I thought it was a really smart way of doing that, for sure. What's the next thing we see?
Usagi and Luna. It cuts to Usagi and Luna sticking around the Rose mansion, and they're up in a tree, and then they're seeing a lot of girls sitting around with the head countess reading poetry, and then Usagi gets excited from seeing dessert inside, and then one of the butlers sees them, and they fall to the tree, and then when questioned, Usagi just says that she wants to join the seminar, and then Usagi says that, or he says that they need one of the members that's a part of it to introduce her, and then Usagi says that, like, Luna is her introductee.
It's sort of similar. The introduction thing was actually like a recommendation, and she's like, "Oh, let me have my cat recommend me," which sounded even funnier to me than an introduction. But yeah, and I loved the moment of her being in the tree. This was where I was getting confused with the animation, though, because these moments outside of the Negaverse, and then that weird moment later with the battle. And then there's like one or two other things I noticed. There were some really great animation moments, like here, like with, and I think the details that were put into like the spread on the table, with with all the girls sitting around it and everything, that took some time and effort. So I can definitely see her touches in there now that I know it's her, and it explains why it sort of peaked and then hit. And I guess those bad ones were just some like clunky moments, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But how does she essentially have to prove that she is, because the Countess approaches her, right? And is like, I'll make an exception, but on one condition. What's the condition?
Edward brings out, or the butler, that's what he's called in Japanese, he brings out a frisbee, and then the Countess tells Usagi that the women have to be, the girls have to be good at throwing a frisbee to join the seminar, and then she was able to pass that because Usagi said that everything that the girls are learning in there, besides that, she's bad at all of them.
Right. And it's funny because they changed it to a discus, even though it is clearly a frisbee. I think they made that choice because they wanted to heighten the, like, fanciness in all aspects, and I thought that was a good choice. And also the episode is sort of silly enough without having to hear them say the word frisbee, which is like a silly word, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually like that change for some reason. And also I've always loved, like, the animation of her throwing it and it going into and cutting all the girls' bows off and stuff. I thought that was a great touch. This was like an interesting detail where we get to see her powers as Sailor Moon having an effect on her human life in a way, right? Can you think of any other examples of that?
I don't think it happens in season 3. And I don't think it happens in season 4.
I'm trying to think of if there's anything else we really see like that. Because I'm making a parallel right now, because we started recording the Cardcaptors show.
Yeah.
And in Cardcaptors, Sakura, the protagonist, right, that's the main character, she has this staff that she kind of twirls like a baton. And at school, she is an athletic baton twirling, like that's part of her ability. And I kind of thought that was interesting how they tied those two things together. So I was curious if there was any more of that in Sailor Moon. But I guess not. So this is sort of a unique moment for that. After this cool thing with the frisbee or the discus, we cut to another scout meeting or a sailor soldier meeting or guardian, whatever you prefer. And this one is minus Serena again, which has happened more than once now. What are they discussing here?
What Usagi is doing, and Artemis says that Usagi is doing it to train to become a princess, to be able to know how to use the silver crystal, and then all the other girls just agree that they should go join her, and then that's what happens.
It's basically the same, but it's a little more 90s flair because they're getting all jazzed about it, and they end it with, like, we're going to crash the seminar. I think they might have even said totally crash the seminar, which is like crash a party kind of lingo thing. And I appreciate that aspect of it. It was a pretty lighthearted meeting. Ray kind of acts a little frustrated with her for a second, but that's about it. Was there anything more to it in the other one?
No, not really.
Yeah, it was pretty non-eventful. We get to see Kunzite and the Countess talking, and they're discussing something. What are they talking? They're like the requirement of the discus. Why did they choose that?
Because he knows that one of Sailor Moon's attacks is Moon Tiara action, and that whoever uses that would have to be really good at throwing a frisbee. So that's how he knows.
Yeah, and I actually thought that was fairly sound logic. And as a kid, I was very impressed by it. As an adult, I'm mildly impressed by it. Still, I think there are easier ways they could have done this by now, but for the show, like, the sake of the show, I think this is a really clever way. I think it's a lot smarter than the hair thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, scanning and... Anyway, I'm still, like, stuck on how they scanned one piece of hair wrong. Anyway, but... it's a little smarter, so they're leveling up, and we cut to a dinner scene, which it's like the first of several tests that she fails, right? Is she like slurping the soup and making like what? How does she fail the dinner? Okay, so it's the same in that sense. They did, for some reason, they freeze on this one frame and kind of wiggle it around in the Deke one, and they extend like the slurping sounds even longer, and it kind of was uncomfortable to the point where I was like, I don't need all that. I don't know why they did that. I'm assuming they cut something and they were like filling time with it, or they just thought it was funny. I don't know. But I was like, that was a little much. But then they all end up in these pink dresses, which I kind of thought were horribly ugly. What did you think of them?
I didn't really have a thought about them specifically, I guess.
I think it's because they, for some reason, felt... Maybe it's the color, which is very Pepto-Bismol, combined with the fact that there wasn't a whole lot of detail. It just felt like pink slapped on them, and it was like they were all big. I don't know. There was just like something about the design of the dresses that was not working for me. And I made another note about the animation because that's one of the things. I was like, I don't know who animated this because it's like good and then that happens. But anyway, now I know. So it's another Ito blip for me. I'm sure other people might like them. And then we go to the dance class.
MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast, will return after these messages. And now, more MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast.
Stand up straight, young ladies. Gracefully now. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. With the music. This is our last class in the Princess Seminar. Those whose shoulders I touch shall graduate.
Oh, my foot!
This is terrible. I'll never be a princess.
So, how's it going, Serena?
Huh? Ray, you guys are all here?
Yes, we had to see what this was all about.
Yeah, Serena.
What is the way? This is like the final test, and some of them are going to graduate and some do not. How do we know who graduates?
It's basically just who can dance properly or formally, I guess. And then Ami and Makoto are doing it right, and then Usagi, Minako, and Ray are shit at it.
Mm-hmm. And the way that they find out they graduate is if she walks over and touches their shoulder, which that detail always stuck out to me. Did you ever notice that?
I didn't really notice it, I guess, until this time.
I don't know why that always stuck out to me, but right now thinking about it, it's kind of, I think that's like another etiquette thing, because if you're trying to get someone's attention without drawing attention, lightly tapping someone on the shoulder like is like a lot less than like being like, hey, blah, when you're like in mixed company. I think it's something to do with etiquette, because they made a big deal about it. I felt like that being the gesture she used. I don't know. But what is graduation here, technically?
Well, the girls that are passed, they get escorted to another room. Ami and Makoto notice that all the statues in there look like real girls, and then it's pretty much immediately after that the Countess turns into a monster and then starts spraying other girls with wax and making them turn into wax.
And this was where I put that they stepped up the animation again, because I thought that the wax statues of the girls were pretty well done. Like, I immediately knew it was supposed to be wax before I knew what the monster was the first time I saw the episode. And because it's like also Madame Tussauds like wax, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. But also the monster, like the transformation from human to monster was really cool. And the monster design itself is one of my favorites from season 1. Can you describe what the monster looks like?
Yeah, it's they have like light purple skin, and they're covered in. They're wearing an outfit that's made out of clam shells, and they have shells in their hands that spray wax, and they have shells like decorating their hair as a headpiece.
And she has this sort of like sheer dress that comes down over everything too, which like has almost a sparkle effect animated onto it. It's an honestly, like, I could see this outfit on like a runway somewhere, probably in the drag format, you know.
Yeah.
But I just think the design is incredible, and I'm not even joking, I did not make this connection until I watched this episode today, but do you know why they chose the theme of the clamshells?
No, I guess not.
Okay, because this is where we get smart, right? And historically, one of the signs of a wealthy woman was wearing real pearls. Yes.
Yeah.
Clams make pearls. Okay, 30 years later, I got it. You didn't. I don't feel so bad because you didn't know. But I literally was like, "Why clams?" And then it came to me, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of smart." And that's one of those nuances that I don't think kids were really meant to get. You know, and if you do get it, it's kind of like a little treat. So that just adds an additional level of me enjoying this monster. The Deke name for her is Polite Society. And
that's the monster's name.
Enchanted, I am Polite Society, and I'm so pleased to make your acquaintance.
Which also I think is so great for a monster name. It's campy. It's just, I don't know. It's this monster is just fun. And there's even some fun in the battle later with some of the dialogue and stuff. But how does the monster attack, by the way? How do her attacks work?
She just sprays wax jets from her hands, and then it just immediately turns anybody it touches fully into wax.
It's a pretty, I mean, like, seems fairly effective. She's got a whole room of people. So, essentially, because she's already turned Amy and Lita, or Makoto, to statues, how does our battle end up unfolding?
Well, the other girls, Usagi, Rei, and Minako, notice that nobody else, like, it's too quiet and something's going on, and then the monster just shows up and says that one of them has to be Sailor Moon. And then when she tries to attack the other girls, Luna and Artemis jumps on the monster, and then they transform, and then Rei and Minako's attacks don't work against it.
Yeah, and I have to give Luna and Artemis some props, because every time they do that, I love them more. It's one of my favorite things, is when they get involved in the battles.
Yeah.
And, yeah, both the fire and the crescent beam get waxed, which, again, like, we haven't seen her power fail at all yet, as long as she's able, you know, to actually pay attention and use it. After that happens, we get a typical Tuxedo Rose, and... Wait, what? Oh, yeah.
That's right.
So right before that, though, this is just another animation or a detail thing, but as she's, like, walking towards them to attack, she lifts up that sheer dress, you know what I mean? And, like, is kind of walking in a certain way, suggesting she has heels on. And that was another detail about her monster that I just thought was really great, because they didn't have to have that. The frames that are in there are very short, but it's telling you more, it gives the monster more character, you know? But yeah, then Tuxedo Mask shows up, and what is this whole thing about? Because it's one of the first times it doesn't go as planned, right? Or as usual, I should say.
Yeah, it's more of a comedic thing, as it turns out, because Mamoru, as Endymion, says that he won't attack the soldiers if Usagi gives the silver crystal, and then the monster says out loud that that's not what Kunzite wants to do, and then Kunzite shows up, and what do they say?
They start fighting, essentially, right?
Yeah, like they start bickering between the three of them, and the monster is really confused, and then...
Yeah, which I have to say that part with her getting confused is, again, like, at least in the English, the way that the voice actress did it was it was cute and funny. You know, like, she's just like...
Such a pleasure to finally meet you, young ladies, and turn you to wax. Please take this.
Like, just so, like, politely perturbed, you know? And then that essentially... What is the drink that Sailor Moon tries to offer her when they're bickering?
It's just coffee in the Japanese.
They changed it to cocoa because, God forbid, kids think about coffee. Like, I guess coffee is too strong for the children, so it had to be hot cocoa. And she corrects the way that she offers it, right? So it's like an etiquette correction. And why is that significant?
Well, because it distracts it catches the monster off guard enough so that she can use her attack and change her back into normal.
It seemed to me like the way they played it off in the Deke is that Sailor Moon wasn't sure that she was actually the human because she didn't see her turn into the monster. All she knew is that a monster appeared, which if you're following the timeline, that makes sense. So her offering her the drink and then getting the etiquette correction was like, I know who you are. You're the polite society lady. Or the Countess Rose lady. I'm going to use my healing on you.
Poor thing, you seem very tired. How about a cup of cocoa to perk you up?
Why, thank you. But better to say, would you like some cocoa?
Aha!
And it obviously works on the monster, and then she tries to do what after that?
She tries to do the same thing with Mamoru as well, but then he just goes away too fast and says that he'll return later, and then all the girls in the manor turn back to normal, and then the episode ends in a kind of a generic way for Sailor Moon. It's just Usagi being late for school again, and then Luna, she runs into Luna and says that she'll try to be more like a princess, and then the toast in her mouth falls out of her mouth, and then that's how it ends.
Yeah, that's a cute moment. And by the way, the ugliest frame in the episode occurs during the exchange with Tuxedo Mask and Sailor Moon when she's first realizing he's like not on their side. And I already posted it on the Facebook today, so you guys will have seen it weeks ago. It's the post I made about being sick. But it is, I'm gonna just read what I wrote about it, knowing that it's Ito, because she's going to get plenty of praise throughout the process of this show. And I'm just saying, the reason I think a lot of people like the show is that I don't hold I give a real opinion. But I really wrote, I glanced up while writing my notes and caught this frame, and I had to pause to write this down and to write about how bad it looks. His head sort of seems like a partially deflated balloon or something. The shadows and shapes are all off. It's just atrocious. I have to post this frame. That is the effect it had on me. Just I completely almost missed it. And I just looked up and saw it and was like, what in the hell is that? And then I'll be honest, looking at the frame by itself without it moving on a screen, it's a little less bad than it seemed in the moment. So I have to give her credit for that, but it's still not good.
Yeah.
It is probably the worst Tuxedo Mask ever looks in the show, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? It's fitting that the absolute best artist from the show also wins that prize. I think. I think it gives her more character as an artist, honestly. Anything about this episode? Oh, I mean, we talked about the ending already. I liked her running to school. It's just a reminder, I think, that even though she's had all this growth, she's still the same character we met at the beginning. I think that's what that's meant to be. Oh, I'm surprised you didn't talk about this, though. That shot of her looking up at the crescent moon with her hair blowing in the wind. That's one of the most memorable scenes from the show to me, because I think they use it a lot, don't they? It's like in an ending or something, or I don't know.
Oh, yeah, you're right, yeah.
There's that I'll try to post screenshots of that when we do the episodes, or when we share this episode, so you guys can find it.
And then there's also... I've seen a lot of cells of this sequence. The part where Usagi is all shocked, and then her face is like... Part of her face is drawn white, and then...
It's that is the frame. That, what you're talking about, is right before the ugly frame.
Yeah.
It's that moment. But yeah, no, it's what they do a similar motif in, is it Crystal Clear Destiny, I think? With those like freeze frame back and forth kind of, you know what I'm talking about, in the dramatic moments.
Yeah.
I think it's the same style. Does that style have a name?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe it does.
I really enjoyed that frame of Sailor Moon, though.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised people are after. Do those cells go for a lot?
I don't remember. I just know that I've seen them, like, I've seen multiple cells from that same exact sequence come up before. They were, like, all from the same seller, and yeah.
Right. Well, that's cool. I would love to see more from this episode. One other animation moment I wanted to highlight before we get into the rating is when everyone's turning back to normal, we see Sailor Moon standing up in the window right before that iconic moment I mentioned. And I love that. Like, to me, there's something about, like, the added detail of, in any video game or animation, seeing through a window and being able to see something important on the other side of it is always fun to me. I don't know why. For some reason, an example I'm thinking of is in Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, when you can, like, look through a window to see Ganon on the other side. I don't know why that just popped into my head, but it's another example of that. But yeah, I enjoy moments like that, and I thought it was animated well in that instance. Rate the episode first.
3.5, I guess.
Okay, tell us why.
I think the only reason why I'm not giving it higher, even though it's Ito, is because, like we mentioned, there are some ugly shots and sequences art-wise, and the plot of the episode it's not super interesting to me as much as other episodes that she's done. Like, I love when Ito is in charge of episodes that have to do with Japanese history or traditions, like the tea episode in season 3, and then the sword training episode in Super S, and then also the shrine episode in Super S as well, where Rei gets Flame Sniper.
Mm-hmm.
I just think those are way more interesting in terms of episodes that she's been in charge of animating.
Okay, I can see that for sure. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna give this episode 5 stars because I just think I connect to it in different ways that you probably don't, which is how it should be. That's how art works. To me, I just find, again, like, the idea of a finishing school sort of charming. One of the we mentioned drag here a lot. I think people who also find finishing schools charming will want to see this video. Look up Monet Exchange and the Vivian Go to Charm School, I think is what it's called. And they essentially see these two drag queens go through what Serena did today, and it is astoundingly hilarious. And I think there's something funny about, inherently charming and funny about, someone who wants to be well-mannered and just can't, despite their best effort. I enjoy that quality in a person a lot. I loved the connection we get from Sailor Moon to real life with her tiara throw, especially knowing that this is probably the only instance that happens where we see such a connection between her real life self and her, I guess, magical self. And honestly, I like that there were some bad frames in it more, knowing that it's Ito, because it gives me a really good frame of reference for how she grows as an artist. And had I not learned that, I think I would have taken a star off for the animation. But knowing that, it's almost like if she didn't take those risks and see, and I'm sure she probably got feedback on probably some of the frames I mentioned at some point where they were like, hey, we love what you're doing, but a little less of this, or careful about that, or whatever, and that's how you get better. So that's why I'm not gonna knock her for that, because without those big swings, you can't have big accomplishments, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's my reason for 5 stars. So 3.5 and a 5. Let us know how y'all would rate this episode wherever you want to comment. And let's get into the Sailor Says.
There's a lot more to good manners than knowing how to walk properly or eat politely or dance well. You know, really good manners are about how you treat other people.
And that means with respect and consideration.
If you see someone struggling with a grocery bag or a parcel, offer to help. That's what the Sailor Scouts would do, and so should you.
I think you can probably guess it's all about manners.
Yeah.
But rather than about following like etiquette, it's more about being kind in life in general, treating other people with respect, even if you don't know them. And they give an example of, if you see someone struggling with groceries or something like that, you should help them out. Let's discuss this a little bit, and let's start with the example. I think that example is outdated in terms of safety. I would not encourage a kid to go up to any stranger who seems struggling that's an adult and help them, unless it was literally like, you think it's an actual emergency and they need 911 assistance, or you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, in almost all cases, I think it's safe to say adults do not need help from children. You know, just for everyone's safety. But I think there are times when you do want to encourage people to act, and you just have to be a little smarter about it, right? What would be a good example when you might encourage even a kid to get involved in something?
I guess just maybe, depending on what it is, like depending on the severity of it, if you see someone just... I don't know, like if you're in public and you all of a sudden see someone pass out or look like they're about to be incapacitated.
Medical emergencies.
Yeah, something like that. I think that's really the only safe instance where it could be, depending on the age of the kid.
Mm-hmm. And this is another one of those instances where I honestly have to say, like, screw politeness when it comes to certain things. Like, I've been approached before at gas stations by people asking me for all kinds of things. And I had a guy call me an asshole one time when I wouldn't give him my cash.
Money.
Yeah, and it's like, listen, dude.
That's just typical homeless people.
No, it wasn't even a homeless guy. It was like a dude who was asking. He had like a full family in a car. He just needed gas money. And it's like, why am I suddenly responsible for you?
Yeah.
You know? And the thing is, this people will look at you and assume what you have based on all kinds of things, you know?
Right.
But people in this day and age sometimes, and I've said it before, will use social niceties and norms and the idea of people being polite to get others to do things or to manipulate other people into giving them things that they maybe shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
And it's tough because if you see yourself as a kind and good person, you want to be nice, right? In all instances. But if someone is making you uncomfortable, I say that all goes out the window and you just walk away, in my opinion. Like, if you are a kid or just alone anywhere out walking and someone approaches you asking for directions in a vehicle and you're not in a vehicle, you know what I'm saying? Just any time when you might be in a vulnerable state, I think those are situations where manners and all of that can completely go out the window. When you're in a safe space, I think those things should still be in place. Like if you're just shopping in a grocery store or something in public around a whole bunch of other people, you can be a little more relaxed, right?
Yeah.
But don't let anyone make you do something you don't want to do just because you're afraid of being rude. I think that's the more important message to push with this kind of thing. What about you? Anything else?
No, you summed it up.
Yeah. It's kind of an interesting one. I think as we go forward, we're going to see what is and isn't considered rude sort of slowly start to change. And I've always been someone, because I'm like, I don't know, neurodivergent, I'll say. And I've never quite understood why some people view rudeness as like the worst possible crime. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I grew up around people who, this one friend of mine, her mom openly hated another friend of mine and would talk about this kid to other kids and how horrible she was often. And I remember asking one time why you don't like this person so much. And her answer was, well, I took her to a fancy steak restaurant one time and she asked them for barbecue sauce. That was it. That's all it took for this lady to label this person as rude, which then meant it was okay for this adult to like terrorize this 12-year-old. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I don't really think someone being rude is like the worst thing in the world, because we don't know why they're being rude, and you don't know what, like, I think most of the time it's not on purpose, probably. I think it's just like a misunderstanding 9 times out of 10, or just not. Now as we move into the future, we know a lot more people are neurodivergent. A lot of people miss social cues. To this day, I still don't get why that was wrong. Do you know why that was wrong for her to ask for barbecue sauce?
No, I guess I don't really get that either.
Maybe we just are not the fancy steak type of people. I'm sure someone out there could tell us why that maybe was cringe or something. I don't know if anyone would justify hating a child over it, honestly. But yeah, that was just one of those things that was, to me, I was like, oh wow, people really have a strong reaction to this, and I'm just not like that. So there was one more thing I think I wanted to go over about this. What was it? Hold on. Guess it wasn't that important. It felt like something important. Oh well, we'll let it go there. I think we have plenty on the Sailor Says.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add? All right, I'll get back to you about the scheduling then via Instagram, and keep me updated about your job.
Aren't you we're going to do the CCS thing?
Oh yeah, duh. Thank you. So let's do that then. Card Captors. The episode this week was about Shadow. This is episode 2. I hope you enjoyed our coverage of Little Miss Manners. This episode has always been a favorite of mine, as you just heard, and I know I'm not the only person who finds the monster's design to be especially great. I've been seeing a lot of fun comments on our social media lately, especially when we post the visual journeys of the episodes before the podcast drops, so I love that. Keep it up. And make sure to share your feelings on manners with us. Any defining moments you've had in your life regarding politeness. Definitely tell us how you feel about this week's monster design. Remember, Polite Society is the name. Can't get enough. Love it. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys next week. For more of Chris, you can find him on Instagram and YouTube at Chris Mayek, ChrisMayek. For more of me, you can find me on Instagram at Alex Summers, SFE. MOONSTAR is sponsored in part by Sailor Moon Video. Shop authentic 90s and early 2000s Sailor Moon VHS and DVD at www.sailormoonvideo.com today. Use offer code MOONSTAR for 15% off of your order. Be sure to follow MOONSTAR on Facebook and bookmark our official website, www.moonstarpod.com. MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast, is intended for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. We claim no ownership over any licensed or copyrighted materials used during the creation of this show, or any materials created in relation to MOONSTAR, a Sailor Moon podcast. All licensed and copyrighted materials belong expressly to the license and copyright holders.
finally meet you young ladies and turn you to wax. Please take this.
Not so fast! Fire! Ignite!
Venus Crescent Beam Smash! She waxed my beams and Mars's fire. How are we gonna stop her?
I really don't know, but what'll we do if I can't stop her either?
I'll open my own wax museum, starting with you 3 Sailor Scouts.
Oh, no! I hate museums, especially with me in them.
Well, isn't it a lovely evening?
Destroy Sailor Moon.
No! Get the crystal!
No! Sailor Moon!
Silver crystal!
Sailor Moon!
The crystal!
Sailor Moon!
I don't know which order to follow. All this confusion is giving me a headache.
Poor thing, you seem very tired. How about a cup of cocoa to perk you up?
Why, thank you. But better to say, would you like some cocoa?
Aha! Okay, now that we've got the Countess back to normal, it's time to start doing the same for my dear tuxedo mask. Moon healing!
Sailor Moon, you can keep the silver crystal until I see you next time. See ya.
Oh, what? Don't go! Oh, tuxedo